What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. What if I were to tell you you could clear GR70 and T13 in 2 minutes and under? Not impressed? Okay. How about GR75 in 2 minutes and under? Still not doing it for you. How about GR80 in under 2.5 minutes? You guys are a tough crowd. How about GR89 in 3.5 minutes? That's right, guys. We have for you today the fastest speed build in the game, period. And guess what? It's using the Pestilence set. So without further ado, let's get into the Blightspear Necromancer. Now again, guys, before we even get started, this is the PTR, so everything we're about to show you is subject to change. And of course, if anything changes, we'll keep the guide up to date on Diablo fans. And if they end up doing a complete overhaul, we'll just redo the guide. Now also, before we get too into it, there are two different variations of this build that we really like. We have a kind of GR80 and under setup, and then we have a GR80 plus setup. We do take note of that, guys, and we'll explain that in the defense guide, but we're going to go into both in this video. Now, if you guys haven't checked out the Razor Teeth build that we just posted yesterday, definitely go give it a look. That build is based around the Pestilence doing Bone Spear damage, but with this build, we are only concerned with the Corpse Lance damage. But the spear is going to play a vital role in how we play. Now, as with most of my builds, there is a small learning curve. Enough talk, let's get into how this works. So starting off with the skills, this whole build is revolved around juicing up Corpse Lance with Ricochet as much as you possibly can. Corpse Lance Ricochet says you deal 1750 weapon damage as poison, and Corpse Lance has a 20% chance to ricochet to one additional target. Now, we aren't reliant upon this effect, but it is a really nice effect. So how are we juicing this up? Again, we are wearing the Pestilence set, and the most important things to note here on the Pestilence set is number one, the two-piece, which says each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby target. This ability alone is godly in this setup, and you guys will see why. And then, of course, the 6-piece, each corpse you consume grants you empowered Bone Spear, that increases the damage of your next Bone Spear by 3,000. Bone Spear, while we very much need it in this build, it is not our primary source of damage. It does do some damage, but you're really not using it for the damage. But the important thing here is the secondary effect, which says, in addition, Corpse Lance and Corpse Explosion damage is increased by 1,500%. And of course, it's a Corpse Lance build, so we're using the Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which says Corpse Lance damage is increased by up to 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse. Max 20 stacks. When this thing gets fully juiced up, you're at 600% damage multiplier. And then in the cube, we're running the new Nair's Black Death, which says each different poison skill you use increases the damage of your poison skills by 100% for 15 seconds. And in this particular build, we are going to be running 1, 2, 3 poison skills, so 300% damage multiplier. We're also juicing it up by using the Johnstone, which says when Land of the Dead expires, you are granted 50 stacks of Macabre Knowledge. Macabre Knowledge increases the damage of your Corpse Lance and Corpse Explosion by up to 200%. Every time we use Land of the Dead and it expires, we get 50 stacks of Macabre, which basically increase our damage by another 200% multiplier. Again, guys, of course we're using Crispin Sentence, which says you deal 100% increased damage to slowed enemies. And we're always going to be proccing this because of Rigor Mortis, and because, of course, we're using Bandit the Trapped, whose secondary effect says gain an aura that reduces movement speed of enemies within 15 yards. You're always getting that 100% effect. And then, of course, the sole purpose of this build is try to keep up Land of the Dead pretty much 100% of the time. So we're always going to be getting that triple damage bonus from Crispin Sentence. Then the secondary effect of Crispin says triple this bonus against enemies afflicted by any other type of control impairing effect. And the main way we're proccing this is by using a Land of the Dead Frozen Lands. And you guys will see we have crazy uptime on this skill. And of course, we always have an on-demand proc of Crispins using Bone Armor with Dislocation. But again, guys, you get 1750 base damage, you get 3,000 additional damage from Pestilence, you get 600% damage increase from Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, you get 200% from the Johnstone, you're going to get triple damage with the Crispin Sentence, and then you get another 300% damage multiplier from Nair's Black Death in the cube. Now again, guys, it's important to understand how Pestilence 2-piece works, which again, each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby enemy. Just like Razor Teeth, guys, we're going to be using Land of the Dead plus Devour to get insane synergy with the Pestilence 2-piece. So again, guys, just to show you how this works, we're going to pop Land of the Dead, we're going to spam Devour, and we get Corpse Lances firing out like crazy just because we can just spam Devour while Land of the Dead's up. So we get constant lances just going out and wrecking everything on our screen. You might think, well, cool, you can do that once every 2 minutes. Land of the Dead is on a huge cooldown. Well, guys, the amount of CDR we have in this setup is insane. We're going to get cooldown on our gloves, shoulders, a gem in the helmet, vigilant belt. We're getting cooldown on both of our ring slots. We're getting cooldown on our weapon, cooldown on our offhand, even cooldown in our necklace. If there's a slot to get cooldown, you want to get it. Cooldown is godly in this setup. Again, that brings us up to almost 60% cooldown, but it doesn't stop there. We're also using Blood is Power passive, which says after losing 100% of your maximum life, all ability cooldowns are reduced by 20%. This effect cannot reduce an ability's cooldown more than once for each time it's used, which basically just means if you lose 200% life, for example, you're not going to get a 40% cooldown reduction. It can only happen once per cooldown. Now, the good thing about this is you can be pretty clever. You can kind of allow yourself to take some damage passively to try and proc this between your Land of the Dead cooldowns. Now, this build in no way relies on that. I'm just letting you guys know that that's a possibility. And of course, we're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, which says reduce the remaining cooldown on one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. That is the reason we have chosen to use Bone Spear here. Not only because it helps us proc Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, but it's also a poison ability which will help us proc Nair's Black Death. Now, quick note here, guys, you actually won't be able to get 3 stacks of Black Death unless you manually cast the spear or the corpse lance. The auto consume that happens when you're devouring, and even though it's hitting stuff, it won't proc Nair's Black Death. The only way to proc a 3rd stack of Black Death is to manually cast Corpse Lance. So keep that in mind if you're like, Fluff, I only have 2 stacks, what's going on? We're also using an Ingyam, which says every single time you kill an elite, your cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing a pack, which is just amazing. And that in combination with Nemesis Bracers, which says shrines now spawn champions. Ingyam and Nemesis go together like peas and carrots, guys. One of the best combinations for speed build in the game, which says gain swiftness with every attack, increasing your attack speed by 1%, dodge by a certain percent based on gem level. This effect stacks up to 15 times. And then the secondary effect says gain 1% cooldown reduction per stack. If you keep full stacks of Goguk, you're going to have an additional 15% cooldown. We're at 60% base cooldown between all of our items. We're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. We're running an Ingyam. We're running Goguk of Swiftness. And we have the Blood is Power passive. As you guys will see in the gameplay above, we have like insane uptime on Land of the Dead Frozen Lands. Other skills, again, like we said, we're using Bone Spear, Blighted Marrow here. 1 to proc the poison of Nair's Black Death, and 2 to proc Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. The damage it deals isn't fantastic in this setup. We are primarily focused on Corpse Lance damage, but it still will do some damage. Now, we're using Blood Rush because, again, we have Ingyam in this setup. So when Ingyam procs, you can spam Blood Rush. And on the rune choice, we selected Molting, which leaves a corpse on the ground, which again has great synergy with the Pestilence 2-piece. We're using Land of the Dead, Frozen Lands, and Devour with Cannibalize. Again, guys, we talked about the synergy happening here. These 2 skills are insanely great together. And then lastly, like we said, we're using Bone Arm with Dislocation, A for the mitigation, B for the on-demand proc of Crispin's Sentence, and C, it is a poison skill, which will give us a 3rd stack of Nair's Black Death. For passives, Blood is Power, we already went into that. We're using Standalone because we're not using any pets here. 100% armor all the time. We're using Final Service, a DI, we don't have any pets, so we don't incur that secondary crappy effect. And then lastly, we're using Rigor Mortis, which says poison abilities also slow enemies by 30% and reduce their attack speed by 30% for 5 seconds. Now, I'm not sure if this stacks with the Templar's Thunder Fury, but this will ensure 100% uptime on the first effect of Crispin's Sentence. Other items in the queue, we are wearing Stewart's Greaves, the new Stewart's Greaves, which say you gain 100% increased movement for 10 seconds after using Blood Rush. So we use Blood Rush and we gain this insane movement speed. It's amazing. This item is one of the best changes to Necro, period. And lastly, we're using Ring of Royal Grandeur so that we can cube Stewart's or cubes Corpse Twister Pauldrons, whichever one you have better of. This helps ensure that we maintain crazy fast clear times if maybe we get a bad map or a bad layout, or maybe we're elite starved. This lets you just rush through bad parts of rifts, which is really, really good. Other options here is you can run the Oryx Crown just to ensure there's even more uptime on Land of the Dead. But we found most of the time that this 60% cooldown is just enough. You can see, guys, if we put this on, we go up to 65% CDR, but we just found that we like Stewart's Greaves the best. It seemed to give us faster clear times in the long run. The other item we didn't talk about is we're using Lost Time. Guys, this is just a stat stick in this build. We are not proccing Lost Time. You can use any one of the Necromancer Phylacteries. For legendary gems, we're using Bane of the Trapped. Yeah, it's amazing. We're using Zai's Stone of Vengeance, not only because we can control how far we are away from mobs, but the Corpse Lances that are being procced off the Pestilence 2-piece, they're going to hit everything on the screen, and they could be right next to you, they could be really, really far away. So Zeiss is really, really good in that regard as well. Now let's just talk about the gameplay real quick. So the goal here is to have as much uptime on Land of the Dead as you possibly can. You want to be kind of jumping from elite pack to elite pack. You know, in GR 80 and under, this will just clear trash on the way through. When you kind of hit 80 to 95, you'll pretty much just be kind of an elite sniper. But basically, say you see an elite, say the PTR Goatman, guys, and we get this question all the time, who is that? It's a PTR vendor, guys. So say the Goatman is an enemy, we're gonna pop Land of the Dead, and we're basically gonna spam our spear as much as we possibly can. And we can spam it without losing any resource because we're devouring like crazy. Now, why would we want to spam our spear? Say he was in fact a target. We're going to be proccing Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. You guys are going to see the Land of the Dead cooldown go down like crazy. Now, again, guys, make sure to manually cast Corpse Lance to get that third stack of Black Death. But it's kind of a give and take with how often you want to be spamming Corpse Lance, especially past GR 80. The ultimate goal with every Land of the Dead is to make sure you're killing the elite pack that you're fighting to get that Ingyam proc. Now, for the most part in GR 80 and under, you can pretty much get the kill just by spamming Bone Spear, so you don't have to worry about this mechanic. But above GR 80, you're going to need to balance being able to kill the elite in time versus spamming as many Bone Spears as you possibly can to bring down the cooldown of Land of the Dead. So if Land of the Dead has like a couple seconds on it and the elite's still alive, make sure you spam the crap out of Corpse Lance and get him dead. That's the ultimate goal. You want to get the elite dead before Land of the Dead drops. If you can just sit there and spam Bone Spear and you think the elites will die from the Corpse Lances that are auto being consumed, then do that. But if you see that your Land of the Dead's almost up and you haven't killed the elite yet, make sure you manually cast that Corpse Lance and get him dead. Really important, guys. Another caveat, you know, if you have like a double pack or something, you can just sit there and manually cast Corpse Lance and not even worry about Bone Spear, because getting a double proc on Ingyam will basically get you ready to go for the next elite pack, no problem. Now, another cool thing to note here, because the cooldown of Blood Rush and Bone Armor are 10 seconds and under, when Ingyam's off, these won't count as cooldowns. So you basically can just spam Blood Rush, spam Bone Armor. This makes sure that nothing really hits you in between elite packs. It makes you pretty tanky, which is awesome, because there's not a ton of tankiness in this build. Now, while you guys are jumping around from elite pack to elite pack, you want to make sure you cast a Bone Spear every once in a while, because an important thing here is to keep up your 4-piece bonus, which says each enemy hit by your Bone Spear reduces damage taken by 2% up to a maximum of 50%. So while you can get kind of carried away jumping around with Ingyam, it's important to make sure you stop, you know, maybe once every few ports and cast a Bone Spear on an enemy, because you don't want that 4-piece to drop. Again, guys, this is kind of the setup that we've landed on for GR 80 and under. The only sources of mitigation you're going to be getting is from Bone Armor Dislocation and the 4-piece Pestilence. Now let's talk about our 80 plus setup. Now I say 80 because that's kind of when I like to change over, but you guys can kind of play with that threshold. If you like the tankiness that the 80 plus setup provides, you can by all means run that in GR 80 and under. You'll be a lot more tanky, and it's really not that much slower. And the same thing can be said for the sub GR 80 setup. If you feel like you can get away with the squishiness past GR 80, by all means do it. So the only thing we switch out here is we drop the Johnstone in favor of the Endless Walk set, which is, you know, the Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose, which says while moving, damage taken is reduced by 50%, while standing still, damage is increased by up to 100%. And that will kind of teeter back and forth as you guys see down here, which is actually amazing in the setup, because when you're moving, you're basically just trying to get to the next pack. And then once you've found your pack, you're popping Land of the Dead and you're spamming your skills, but you don't move. So the Endless Walk set is absolutely amazing in this setup. And then once that Land of the Dead cooldown is gone, make sure you're moving again, getting your toughness back up. So that's going to give us 3 forms of mitigation as opposed to just 2. The other thing this changes is that we drop Stewart's Greaves from the build in favor of just running Corpse Twister Pauldrons, and we put on the 6-piece Pestilence. And of course, we either cube or wear Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, whichever one you have a better version of, and that's literally the only thing we change. This just gives us, again, like we said, that 3rd layer of mitigation. Plus, the higher GR you try to do, the less effective Johnstone becomes. Like we said in our PTR video, guys, Johnstones kind of become like a speed farm setup item. And when elites don't die, you know, in the first like 5 seconds of Land of the Dead, that's probably when you want to switch over to the Endless Walk set. But that does it for the skills, the passives, the gems. We showed you guys both variations. So real quick, we'll just talk about stats. On the gloves, you're going to want int, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction. Shoulders, int, vite, cooldown reduction with Corpse Lance damage. Helmet, Invite crit chance, and of course a socket so you can put a diamond in. Chest, invite corpse lance damage and 3 sockets. Belt, invite life and cooldown reduction. Pants, invite armor with sockets for topazes. People always ask me what gems you want to use, guys. Topaz. There's always topaz. Boots, invite armor with bone spear damage. The bone spear damage isn't super necessary here. These are just the same boots that we use for the razor teeth build, but you could go in favor of movement to get maybe more int out of your paragon. For the weapon slot, again, we are using Ingyam. Like in a lot of necro builds, damage roll, cooldown reduction, and then attack speed over intelligence. Get like the trifecta of goodness, if you will. In the offhand, crit chance, cooldown reduction, intelligence, damage roll, and then you can either do vitality or corpse lance damage. It's just kind of dependent upon how much you think you can survive. We have about 800k health in our setup. For the compass rose, the dream would be to have attack speed, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction, socket. We'll talk about the jewelry rolls you would want for each item in both builds. So if you're wearing Crispin Sentence, you're going to want attack speed, crit damage, and cooldown reduction with socket. You could go int over attack speed. We'll actually leave a link in the comment section below. Zanji and Bear did this like crazy spreadsheet for corpse lance breakpoints for attack speed. If you guys want to nerd out and know exactly how much attack speed you need to run or the perfect levels of attack speed, definitely give that a look. Then if you're using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, you want attack speed, crit chance, cooldown reduction, and socket. For the Johnstone, you would want crit damage, crit chance, and cooldown reduction. Same thing goes for Traveler's Pledge. And of course on the bracers, poison, crit chance, intelligence, vitality. Now a big thing to note here is on the secondaries, you obviously want physical resistance, but pickup radius is invaluable here. It really speeds you up. Being able to pick up those globes on the fly without having to precisely teleport really speeds up runs. I want to do a big shout out to Aranis. He did come up with the concept of this build. Someone posted his build on our PTR video right after we posted it. We went and checked it out, and we didn't love it at the time, and we changed some things around, made it a little bit better in our eyes. But then we went back and checked his build later, and he kind of landed on the exact same thing. So big shout out to him. Great player. And we'll leave a link to his Diablo Fans Guide down below. Another big shout out to all you guys that are subscribers. You know, we've hit 16,000 subscribers. That's like 16,000% growth in the last like 2 months. We really appreciate you subscribers on Twitch. You know, every little bit, every donation, subscribe, really helps out, keeps this dream alive. And of course, our boys on Patreon, we love you guys. If you guys like the content, you want to see me keep doing stuff like this, make sure to drop a like, drop a sub, whatever you guys are comfortable with. But that's basically going to do it for the guide. As always, guys, we'll leave a clear at the end of the video. Almost GR90 in 3.5 minutes. And in that clear, we actually had the wrong passives on. So that goes to show you how powerful this is. Another caveat with that is we didn't remove Paragon. We did have 1700 Paragon in that 89 clear. But if it could do that level of GR in that amount of time, you guys can rest assured that regardless of your Paragon, you're going to be able to fly through speed rifts in the 70-80 range, no problem. It is mostly a gear dependent build. As always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.